on a walk, I found this perfect flower for our first paper cutout. I went to my studio, got out my paper, and picked out a background color that we could use to start with. I've selected a few colors to work on top of this background blue, and yellow is one. First thing I'm going to do is cut off a little bit that's closer to the size of the petals I want to be cutting. So I look at the picture and then I start to cut. And I'm looking at the petal and its size and see how I'm turning the paper, and I'm cutting up till I get something close to what I want. But it seems a little bit big, and so I'm going to trim it off. But I really want this to be bigger than the background paper, so it's okay. That looks better. So next I trim off another little piece, and I'm going to cut another petal and look at the picture and see if I can find an unusual petal that I might want to. Oh, look at that little curve right there. I'm going to try that. First I curve around the top and it's not quite right. I think I better adjust it a little and come back down, and that looks okay. So I'll try now to fill in the rest of the petals until the whole flower is there. I know this flower is rather large, so I decided to make a smaller version. And this means I cut smaller pieces of yellow, more in line with the size of the petals that I want to make. And you can see how I turned the paper. And this turned out just a little bit large, so I'll clip off the end and lay it down on the flower, and slowly it's getting bigger. This is the amazing thing about cut paper. You cut a little thing, and you cut another little thing, and another little thing, and then you pile them up, and you have something large. It's incredible. Now let's have a look at the center of this flower. You can see that it's round and it's yellow with a brown background. So I'm going to take out some brown, and I'll cut a center first for the small flower, and then next a little bigger one for the big flower. And watch how I'm turning the paper as I go, and that's how I cut a circle. And it certainly doesn't have to be perfect. If I look at the center, I can see it's not just brown, it's also yellow, and it has little tiny, almost like V petals in it. So I've got a bunch of scraps here from making the petals. So I'm just going to take little bits of those scraps, and looking at that, it looks a little like these kinds of shapes are inside there. Now, I could just leave it like this, of course, but I'm going to make, maybe that's a little, oh, it looked like a heart, so I could just cut little hearts. But this looks like it's a little bit too big, don't you think? So I'll cut it a little smaller, like that. I'm going to make a bunch of those and put them in so you can still see some brown around there. And okay, I'll work on that. Let's have a look at that picture again, and you can see that there's a little bright yellow circle around the center. So I'm going to take the center we made on brown, and I'm going to glue it down to some yellow and then cut around it in kind of a wavy way, and then I have a yellow circle around the center. Yikes, but it's yellow on yellow. I would really like to set that off. So now I'm going to glue it down on a piece of brown and do the same thing. Cut around it so that I have a little brown outline around the outside. And that will help make my center all stand out. Let's see how it looks. Now it's time to glue everything down, and I'm going to look for the petal that's the most underneath, the one that's under everything else. So I choose one, glue it up using my magazine for my table protection, and I'm going to work my way all the way around to the last petal that's on top, and glue it down, and then it'll be time to put the center in. Maybe it's not too late to add this leaf. You can see it's sort of a classic leaf off a stem, and the stems are slightly offset. I'm going to give that a try. Now that would have been, ooh, that's a nice shape. I think I'll just cut that off. And this time I'm going to cut off a piece so it's a little bit easier to turn. And if I go quickly, there might be time for me to stick it under here. Yes, they have not quite dried, so I can peel them up. Stick that under there. I already glued my flower down, so I can't put leaves underneath the flower. So I have to do something. So I cut a little smidgen and I'm going to just put it right on the edge. So I have leaves, but they're sort of invented.